future for cars is electric. There can be not much doubt about that. So what I thought we'd do is we'd take one out that represents kind of the new breed and see how it goes as a regular run-of-the-mill car. We're in the Hyundai IONIQ and we're in the top spec one. It's an Elite and it's full electric and it cost $59,990. So what do you get for your $60,000? Well, you get a kind of mid-sized car. It's not too challenging to look at. It's not as fruity as a Prius, for instance. And it doesn't sort of shout its green credentials at you. Well, this particular one does a bit because it's got bloody 100% electric written all over it. That's not standard on regular IONIQs. This is just a press card that's been signed up to let everybody know how incredibly eco-friendly and forward-thinking I am as a driver. Now, of course, it's a full electric car. It doesn't need a proper grille. There's no need to get fresh air into the engine to cool it down. The power plant in this is electric motor, and it develops 88 kilowatts and 295 newton meters of torque. Maybe the kilowatt power is a little down on what you might expect of a car this size. I mean, it weighs 1,420 kgs, but when you drive the car, you don't feel like you're wanting for more performance. If you want to drag someone off at the lights, you can drag them off at the lights in this quite handsomely. It's got enough power to break traction at the front wheels in the drive if you've got traction control switched off. Oh, look at that little chirp from the tyres. That's encouraging, isn't it? Because it's the Elite, this version comes very well equipped. It's got memory seats, they're electrically heated, as is the steering wheel, radar cruise control, autonomous emergency braking, parking sensors all around, lane departure warnings, lane keep assist, blind spot warnings, the rear vision mirrors dip to show you the curb when you put it in reverse. Nice little things like that, and I'm actually quite surprised how much kit they've got in here that you would think is going to draw a whole bunch of current and reduce your range. But some things are definitely unique. Things like the vanity mirrors behind the sun visors, they're switchable. Normally, you know, most cars these days, you slide open the mirror or you open the flap and the light comes on automatically. In this car, you do decide to switch that light on because I guess it's going to drive a little bit of your range out the window. I've been involved in some pretty poxy weather. It's really nice now, but it's been hosing down with rain. I've had to use wipers, I've had to use headlights, the air conditioning, the demisters, you know, I've even used the seat heaters and the steering wheel heater. So I've given the car, you know, a bit of a hiding in terms of electrical draw, and it hasn't budged too much from its anticipated range. Although when I first jumped in the car, I picked it up, it had 207 k's, I think it was, of range displaying. As soon as I switched on the air conditioning and the headlights, that dropped to about 160. So 40 k's of range sort of vanished pretty smartly. But, to be fair, a lot of that range was recovered again when I started to use my sort of more aggressive regenerative braking settings. It's got 3 levels of regenerative braking, and each of those are programmed into the different driving modes. You've got an eco driving mode, which is, you know, economy oriented, which has a lot of regenerative braking, and you have a normal mode which has less regenerative braking, and you have a sport mode which has very little regenerative braking. But you can manually dial up more braking as you like. So I'm going down a reasonable hill here, and I think I can tolerate, you know, the maximum level of regenerative braking. So that's charging up the battery as much as it can. If I find I'm going too slow down the hill, I can just paddle off the regenerative braking to 2, level 1. So level 1 seems to be about right for going down this hill. And I can actually take the regenerative braking off altogether, in which case the car essentially freewheels. I'm using a conventional 3-pin plug from the garage to charge the car up. It comes with 2 cables. There's that one, which takes about, they say, about 16 to 18 hours actually to charge it from completely discharged to fully charged. There's an AC fast charger, which will do it in about 4 to 5 hours. And there's also a DC rapid charger, which will give you about 50% of your full charge in 30 minutes. This car came with a boot full of brochures issued by the government, which says, curious about electric vehicles. They think about 90% of all travel, in New Zealand anyway, in cars is less than 90 kilometres, and that the average trip of a vehicle in New Zealand is about 29k. So that kind of goes to address the range anxiety. Really, you could go for about a week at that rate between charging. It's got pretty good accommodation for everybody. There's, you know, enough room for 5 people, pretty good leg room there. Even the rear seats are heated. The boot, it's not particularly huge. The floor's quite high in the boot, but you know, the sloping hatchback gives you plenty of access. It's pretty much like a regular car, really. Of course, one of the attractions of the electric car is that there's so few moving parts that maintenance and upkeep is sure to be really, really simple compared to a combustion engine car. There's only about, you know, a dozen or so moving parts. So you would hope that your electric car, once you've forked out the initial outlay for it, will be really, really cheap to keep going. If you've got a kind of predictable commute route, or you are disciplined enough to charge your car overnight every time like you do with your phone, then the IONIQ can make a lot of sense. It sits on the driveway at my place at night with a blue cable plugged into the side of it, and the little blue lights on the dashboard sort of breathe, you know, like the car's alive. But it's really an illusion. It's not alive. And that's the biggest criticism I have of the IONIQ and probably all electric vehicles. They don't really have a kind of a heartbeat. They don't really have a soul to them like a petrol engine does or a diesel engine does. Something about the fact that a car makes a noise and rattles and vibrates a bit gives it something to form a relationship with. With these things, it's very much a sanitized and somewhat sterile drive. You certainly arrive like you would in any other car, albeit a bit quieter, but there's no real heart in the travel. No. Maybe that's not important to some people, but for me at this stage it still is. Take one for a drive and see what you reckon, because, you know, it's not that far off being the default option, I think. I'm actually really impressed with this car. I didn't expect I would really find it that beguiling, but I have.